Okay. I have a couple of clients who have very specific rules about branding. Their brand messages, well, for any client, needs to stay consistent across the board. You know, for instance, one of them is a fabric called Cordura, and every time you write Cordura, you have to write it out in all caps with the trademark symbol right next to it, and it has to be used that way. So just making sure that you know, you're communicating with everyone. So we also handle their advertising. So making sure PR, social media, advertising are all sending that same brand message, you know, through everything. And that's a big struggle for some agencies because there's not that communication, and you know, you just need to accept that sometimes social media might not be what that brand needs, or you know, you have to drop it. And some professionals, it's hard to do that. So I've seen that fail because they want to use their program so badly, but you know, well, maybe Cordura doesn't need social media. Maybe that wouldn't benefit them. So just making sure people stay on top of, you know, what the client needs is really important in maintaining that brand message and keeping the client focused and happy. Also, just making sure the brand message is the same across the board, and throughout everything that we do, we make sure that it is through tweets, Facebook posts, are all aligned with our ad messages. So I would say brand messages are success.
We're in the middle of doing a complete redesign of our website and all of our reports, and so we're very familiar with a lot of those issues. But I'm a few person now.
Well, we started in the day of the 5 1/4-inch floppy disk. Does that ring any bells? A little device called a dongle, and that was how you protected your intellectual property. And it went between the printer port and the printer, and if it wasn't there, the software wouldn't work. It would count down the number of profiles that were run, and people could get a code from us, which was at least this long, and put it in to renew that. And half the dongles worked and half of them didn't. We never knew till it went out. And in '96, we were the first communication style profile online, because we already were computerized. We were the first computerized assessment out there. And all of a sudden now we had business in Europe at that time anyway, but now all of a sudden we had business anywhere in the world that had internet connectivity. And so it went from just a North American image, if you will, and not a really good one, to now different pictures for the European market. And now here we are in 2011, 2012. Hopefully by 2011 we'll have this new thing. And we've gone to icons instead of pictures. The branding piece that we're going to roll out is really going to be a significant enhancement to how people see the many elements of Forte. We start with the profile, but it then moves all the way through to we uniquely measure resiliency as often as every 30 days. We have programs with the military on that right now, for example, and a number of our clients are particularly, you've seen the most recent hiring figures. I know this is not a good topic for those of you ready to go out and find a job. I think you'll do fine, because most of what is out there and people that may not be finding jobs right now, organizations have found ways or looking for ways to make it work with what they've got. And so, you know, your competency going in is going to be important. But this is a tough place for us to be in terms of how do we help not only our existing clients grow with less, because that's basically the requirement, and then also how do we help them identify those exceptional performers and bring them on the team. Because here in the United States, we used to hire very fast and fire slow. Canadians would hire slow, fire fast. Now it's very much globally taking a lot of time to hire somebody, and then they'll make a quick decision to let someone go if it's not working out. Our job is to avoid that, having to let them go, onboard in ways that are most productive. That's how we look at it. And I want to say one thing about the social media. Way back when, it was called the 311 rule, and that's if you did something good, someone would tell 3 people. If you did something bad, they'd tell 11. Well, now they tell thousands. And so you've got to really be careful how you manage this social media, because all of a sudden it can be out there and it may or may not even be true. But how do you defend it? And then a lot of our professional clients, we work with them on that a lot. And this is in terms of the people interface. It's kind of a step beyond for you guys.
I am part of a division here at the university called the Division for Public Service and Continuing Studies. And one of our challenges is to give appropriate attention to each of our programs and or brands, if you will, and still have a summary message that goes out. We have Marine Class, which is a lot of children's camps. We have a program called Kino, which does a lot of training for the nonprofit world. We have OLLI, which is OSHA Lifelong Learning, and then there's my group, which we've recently had a logo developed for by Jeannie Pursuit's class. And this, I believe, will be the beginning of our branding. The process involved 3 semesters worth of work. It was an integrated marketing communications package that the student did as a directed independent study. And then her senior integrated marketing class did a project that looked at and researched different components of a identity package for us. And then from that, we narrowed it down to several logos that we liked. And Rachel Kaler, who worked for me one semester, developed a series of focus groups that we were able to get feedback on. So we've come up with a logo that we really liked called the Consortium for Organizational Development. It's COD, which was an acronym I really liked. And then the image itself is a compass. I don't have it with me today.
We have the 2 finalists that got merged into that final product. We don't have the final logo.
Right.
This is the compass idea. And then this was the COD idea. So we kept COD, but we have more of a look like that.
And our photographer, just real quick, Andrew was on the team that developed this logo, and Rachel's, because it was also desktop publishing, so they did the visual package. Advanced IMC did the identity and the identity development.
It was a very, very interesting project, and I think what that's going to do for us is help us build our brand and help build stakeholders in our process, because we truly want to build this consortium of both internal and external stakeholders in developing programs and developing partnerships and synergies, you know, to create wonderful workshops and wonderful products. So that's been my success story so far.
Right, excuse me, I forgot the most important thing I was going to say today. Page 6 of the Forte report in relation to this question.
Yes.
Page 6 of the report is your brand. It gives your motivators and your demotivators. So when we're talking about branding, if you're not thinking of your own personal brand, particularly in an organization or in a relationship, you need to take that into consideration. So page 6 of the Forte report, you'll look at it, and that will give you exactly the strengths you bring to the table, and it creates your brand, if you will.
All right, Allison, we're gonna let you be first this
Okay.
time. Coordinated managing a meeting makes a big deal out of narratives, and so does IMC, in the terms of stories lived, our life experiences, that we make sense of through story and stories told, which this crowd is familiar with. How much has the concept of story, broadly defined, been a part of your thinking as a communicator within your company and your company's communication with others?
First of all, I thought this was a great question. I really like this. I had to think a bit about it. I guess in a simple way, one of the ways I use stories told would be client testimonials, if that counts. They affirm the quality of our programs, and I will use those on client packages or on letters of support that I'm sending out on behalf of the university or in our website. We were recently asked by our lobbyist to put together some letters of support from those that we had trained, and those stories, if you will, are very influential. And these packages went to the General Assembly, our legislative body, to ask for further funding. So in that regard, I think stories are very powerful, and I certainly like to leverage those when I can. In terms of stories lived, I guess I would say I would draw on the experience I have in economic development and higher education, try to draw from the examples I've experienced in working with clients, so I can build that relationship and hopefully leverage some of their stories to try to find an area of of work that we can proceed with. So in a very simple way, that's how I use stories.
We end up with 2 stories, and Rick, if you could put up on the screen, there's a PDF of Joe Doe that will show you all what we call the trending of the Forte adapting updates, and this actually becomes a story of somebody's life. And this is where,
which page you want me to get to?
go to page 11.
The worksheet.
It's going to be 12. Actually, you go to the next one back, I guess. This is Joe, it must not be current. No. Okay, we need,
It's the wrong environment. This is
okay,
applies at work. Should be others at work.
okay. Can you go back to, Sue, you may want to come do this. I'll explain it while we're getting it up so you can take a look at it. And as often as every 30 days, you fill out what we call the adapting update. And this can be my boss at work, it can be others at work, my team at work. And for example, say you're my boss, John. I could do John at work, you could do Hoop at work. And this produces 3 pages of the report that says how I am currently, at least feeling, how I best adapt to you, and then vice versa. And then there's another page there that shows here's how you're adapting, but here's how you're most likely coming across to others. And the difference between how I'm adapting and how I'm being perceived is where the potential for miscommunication between individuals is the highest. And so there's a prescriptive on page 9 of the report that says, do these things with John for the next 30 days to close those gaps. And so this gets to be the story told, because working together, then we start seeing this is working, this is not working. But so many times in life, whether it's at work or in a personal relationship or whatever, when do we have those crucial conversations? About the time we're going to have a train wreck. It's not till we get frustrated or whatever with each other. And so what we're attempting to do with the adapting updates is, if there's a plus or minus 2-point difference between the current adapting, which is the red line, and then the receiver profile, which is the blue line, then at that point we'll have a paragraph on page 9 saying do these things to close that gap. So it ends up being a story told, and people that we sit down with and we coach or we help develop, they can tell you exactly what was going on at each one of those points in time. September 17th, 2009, now May 12th, 2011. They can tell you what was going on, what was working, and from that you then develop a plan of success. I knew this worked with John, he was happy with me, I was happy with him, and now we get the synergism of 1 + 1 = 3. And it's actually documented here. And if we could go to the next page real quickly, and then maybe take it, okay, here, that's fine, right there. We're measuring the stamina of the individual, meaning mental energy, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I wanted you to see this part of the story. And then the goals index, how we're feeling about how we're meeting goals. In relationships, you can identify, anyone in this room can identify for me right now, a relationship which is probably not what you'd like to have it. Or you can identify for me relationships that are very productive and you're excited about. And this is when we look at, we see stamina dropping and goals index dropping. That could be an individual headed towards burnout. If we see very high stamina, few goals, if any, that relationship could be rusting out. And so by taking this knowledge and applying it, that's how we tell the Forte story. And it's with any relationship you have, whether it's your team, your organization, whatever it may be. And that's the story.